there are still seats on the sides and on this side. Maybe. We apologize for those who don't have seats. We all want to witness this momentous event. So we have University of Santa Isabel here also. University of Nueva Cáceres, where are you guys? Over there? Yes, and I believe the College of Law. We have UNEP also here, College of Law of UNEP. Then, of course, members of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines and Madrigal Federation, of course. CCBI, ALS teachers are also here. The Ateneo de Naga University Graduate School and the Senior High School is also here. Rotary Club of Metro Naga is also here. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to the 4th installment of the Ateneo College of Law's lecture series entitled Federalism and its Ramifications Across the Nation. This forum is organized by the Ateneo College of Law, led by the first-year law students as a social justice subject requirement. The timeliness of this public forum is quite impeccable. Federalism, though highly talked about, is also highly misunderstood. The prism brought about by the multitude of views on this issue is sometimes downright, let's say, ridiculous at best. So here, now, on this forum, we aim to present you an avenue where we can all see and hear from one of the most straightforward and no-nonsense opinion maker of this generation. And we are fortunate indeed to have him here with us. But before that, friends, I know everybody's looking forward to this talk. But first and foremost, we begin by showing our thanks to our Almighty for this momentous event through our opening prayer. We call Mr. Don Abergos, first-year law students of the Ateneo, to lead us all in solemn praise. Let us all please rise.
In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Father, praise you for this event, a forum on federalism, and your purpose for it. We know that when we gather together, you always have a divine agenda. We love you for that, Father. That even when we have done what you have asked, the results are so much greater than we ever could have imagined. Even in failed attempts, you blow us away with your faithfulness to provide us what we need. Our prayer for today is that your will be done through this event. Take what we have prepared and multiply our efforts as only you can. Steer our intentions to align with your righteous will. Remind us of your faithful provision when our efforts fail us or fall short. May all glory go up to you when we reach the finish line and climb over benchmarks. Blanket us with your peace today, Father. Keep us physically safe and guard our hearts and minds from pride and selfishness. Keep love at the forefront of our minds today and the guiding light for all we set out to accomplish and celebrate. In Jesus' name, amen. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Please remain standing for the Philippine National Anthem. Ateneo de Naga has long been a beacon of excellence and righteousness in the region, and slowly, through generations of Ignatian formation, to the whole nation and even to the far reaches of the globe. And one of the ways of maintaining its repute and values is by the Ateneo sponsoring forums like this that enlighten its flock on the current, compelling issues of the times. So to represent the Ateneo community and its administration, and to formally open the program, a round of applause please to Attorney Avelino Salas Jr., Legal Counsel and Chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Ateneo de Naga University.
Brother Raymond Villasa of the Society of Jesus, Judge Junel Usua, Prosecutor Richard Koo, Prosecutors Abunal and Reyes, and all members of the IBP here this afternoon. I see Doctors Becky Torres and Lee Guingo representing the Council of Administrators, the officers of the Ateneo Law Student Council, the Ateneo de Naga College of Law students, law students of the other law schools in Camarines Sur and in Naga City, the University of Nueva Cáceres and the University of Northeastern Philippines in Quezon City, students of the Colegio de Santa Isabel, Ateneo de Naga, UNC, and our esteemed and renowned constitutionalist and guest speaker, and also, by the way, the fiery protector of the realm insofar as the issue of the West Philippine Sea, which China wants to be called South China Sea, before the Permanent Arbitration Court in The Hague, the Netherlands. Friends of the Ateneo de Naga, good afternoon. In behalf of the Board of Trustees and Father President, Reverend Father Ezekiel Roberto Rivera SJ, I welcome you all to today's fourth lecture series, sponsored by the ADNU College of Law, as well as Father Wilmer's Freshman's Social Justice classes. It is the desire of this forum to raise the level of awareness and understanding of, as well as appreciation for the burning issues of the day, if only to uplift the bar of discourse, deliberations, and partnership, not only by and among the members of the academic community, but to extend the same to the public at large. The question may thus be asked, is federalism a burning issue of the day? To this question, further queries may be propounded still, like, what relation has the rapid increase in prices of basic commodities got to do with federalism? Can federalism put food at the dinner table of every worker? Will we be able to sleep soundly in the comforts of our homes with our families and neighbors if our governmental structure is transformed from a unitary to a federal one? As we shall be told by Attorney Hilbay in a few minutes this afternoon, the 1987 Constitution provides us three modes of revising or amending our Constitution, two of which are laid at the doorsteps of Congress. They are Constitutional Convention or Constituent Assembly. It seems that our present Congress has a patent predilection to avail of the second mode, which is Constituent Assembly. However, it is said that the present Congress has no more material time to work out this shift? Or is it the case? In the September 29, 2018 issue of the Philippine Star, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, was reported to have secured the acquiescence of some 21 members of the lower house to pass Resolution number 15, which proposes the revision of the 1987 Constitution, titled The Constitution of the Federal Republic of the Philippines. The newspaper report further says that the resolution provides for a president and vice president to serve 4 years with re-election of another term of 4 years. There will be 24 senators and members of the House, the representation of which will be pegged now from 250,000 to 350 population. Now, no term limit is set for the members of Congress. Among the good news for this is that federal states are to be created and established by and upon authority of Congress. So it's a delegated power by the Constitution to Congress. The Commission on Appointments, consisting of some 24 members, 12 from the upper house, the Senate, and 12 from the lower house, with the Speaker of the House as ex officio chairman. I remember a talk I had with a congressman who told me, don't ever tempt congressmen or members of Congress to tinker with the Constitution because their interests, their self-interest will be what will prevail. It seems that there is some truth to the observation. Now this resolution number 21, number 15, comes at the heels of the 19-member consultative committee report headed by then Chief Justice Renato Puno, and the same was submitted to the President, which is the draft of the new federal constitution. This was submitted on July 17, 2018. Now, the consultative commission basically offers the division of governmental powers into the federated government on the one hand and to the federal regional governments on the other. In this draft, there are 18 federal states, but they also have regional governors each for the 18. There will be regional assembly, there will be regional Supreme Court and regional appellate courts in the judiciary. Now, this federated government will have a president and a vice president, 36 senators, 400 members of the House of Representatives, and 4 high courts, which are the Federal Supreme Court, Federal Constitutional Court, Federal Administrative Court, and the Federal Electoral Court. Now, finally, all these events can be related to what the then 14th Congress prepared in 2008. This is Senate Joint Resolution number 10, introduced by Senator Aquilino Nene Pimentel Jr., together with some 11 other senators, which was filed on April 23, 2008. Now, this joint resolution to convene Congress into a constituent assembly for the purpose of revising the 1987 Constitution to establish a federal system of government, and in this instance, 8 voted for the passage of the resolution, with 4 voting but with reservations as to the mode of revising the Constitution via Constituent Assembly as well as its timing. Now, in this resolution, Senate Resolution number 10, 11 federal states are provided for. And one of them is the federal state of Bicol. But with Masbate being taken out from the region and transposed to the federal state of Central Visayas. I don't know if they are from Masbate here, and I don't know also whether you will be amenable if such provision is inserted into the Constitution. Now, these then are the challenges we now face today. And therefore, it is very opportune that we have Attorney Hilbay here who will express to us what the challenges are and how federalism as proposed, and perhaps how it can be counter-proposed or how it can be either ratified or denied, that we shall hear from him. Now, going back to the questions I posed earlier, I submit that only a discerning community, bound by the love for our country and its people, under God's salvific protection, can effect a meaningful and authentic change for a better Philippines, far better than what was promised during the campaign, but hopefully much far better than what we now have. Again, I welcome everyone to this forum, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Attorney Abdino Salas. Men and women of note all have their views on our issue today. One of those is a good friend of our guest speaker. She is the sitting senator of the Republic of the Philippines, conferred the prestigious Prize of Freedom by Liberal International, and conferred also the first ever Most Distinguished Human Rights Defender Award during the Ignite Awards for Human Rights by Amnesty International. Guests, a message from Senator Laila Maestrado de Lima, to be read by Ateneo Law student Miss Angela Jamie.
Federalism, a recipe for further division and disintegration of our nation. Diyos mahay na daw sa inyo gabos. Today, allow yourselves to yearn for rhyme and reason. Let the insights of those who will speak before you trickle down your consciousness as you travel back in time to your constitutional classes. Knees shaking, voice cracking, and heart pounding, trying to recall the pages you've so painstakingly labored to finish reading. Remember the words of Justice Sarmiento in Ganzon versus Court of Appeals, where the Supreme Court, before it was infected by the plague that sweeps our homeland these days, said, autonomy does not, after all, contemplate making mini-states out of local government units. Autonomy, in the constitutional sense, is subject to the guiding star, though not control of the legislature. It is also noteworthy that in spite of autonomy, the Constitution places the local government under the general supervision of the executive. The framers of the 1987 Constitution, together with the justices who penned those decisions, are much wiser than those who now seek to alter our organic law, because they must have known that an archipelagic country, already geographically divided, should not be further subjected to disunity that breeds divisiveness. As learned students of the law, your minds have now been trained to question the rationale behind governmental decisions of transcendental importance that would affect the entire nation and generations yet to come. What is the rationale behind the efforts to overhaul the Constitution? What evils will it create? What kind of future awaits the Filipino people at the end of this shift? I have avoid engaging in public discourses on charter change or federalism. But of course, I cannot help debating, but only in few exceptional cases as to federalism, lest my silence be taken as a surrender. Allow me to declare here and now that my position on the matter is absolute. No to federalism, especially under this current set of leaders. No, especially because the dangers are overflowing, glaring, and compelling. What happens to regions who are not as agriculturally gifted as the others? They could be left behind, slowly rotting away into their demise without a central government to ensure their rise. Hostilities among ethnic groups could worsen if the national government would no longer be an omnipresent force to neutralize the situation. Political dynasties whose vigor will be fortified by the impunity that devolution provides would flourish as they rob the poor of services and benefits that rightfully belong to them. Oligarchs will pursue their own interests, unmindful of the widespread effects on the nation. The huge budgetary implications on the country amidst inflation are overwhelmingly debilitating that we would be better off fed to the lions. Why then should we allow our country to be dismembered, our people to be alienated from each other, and our leaders to thrive in impunity? Our dear future lawyers, in the confines of my detention center, I weep with all of you. This government has failed you 100 times over. The President of this land and those he placed in office who should offer you inspiration have instead taken opportunity to sacrilege the laws you all spend sleepless nights to master. The jurisprudential declarations beautifully written by the olden courts that you memorized for hours on end have been twisted, manipulated, and overturned for the benefit of the few. The institutions that you will soon take an oath to defend are collapsing, one after the other, only to accommodate the selfish desires of those who desecrate our country in exchange for their own personal motives. I cannot blame you if you will go back and forth trying to make sense of all of it. But please, do not give up on our nation. We will soon rise from this and hold accountable those who have wantonly, flagrantly, and despotically destroyed the faith of our countrymen on our laws. So please, I beg of you, hold your books, codals, and case binders ever closer to your chests, for you will soon march to the front line of this battle against those who falsely and so wrongly believe that tyranny and despotism will forever reign. For the rule is not perpetual, not with all of us whose eyes remain open to the wrongs they incessantly commit, are steadfast in defending our motherland from them who do nothing but bring our nation to ruins. We will not give in to the forces that silence us, even under pain of political persecution. We will be unnerved by the darkness that envelopes our country, even if standing up for what is just and lawful would mean wrongful incarceration. Now, more than ever, our Filipino brothers and sisters need our unbridled courage to let the rule of law to prevail. May you never tire to question the unconstitutionality of the steps taken to whitewash the wrongs this administration has so capriciously committed. And may you continue to enthusiastically dream of becoming honorable members of the Philippine Bar. Do not be discouraged, because the rule of law is at the brink of extinction. Let it instead fuel your love for the law. Listen more intently to the wisdom of your professors, whose knowledge of the law far outweighs that of those in seats of power. who thoughtlessly revoke, reverse, and rescind constitutional and legal pronouncements to tickle their evil fancy. Spend more time with your books and codals so that you can rewrite history, mend what they have broken, and create a better, stronger, and more unified Philippines. Stay passionate in your quest for justice and persevere even more to be the noble lawyers that our country deserves. Thank you for your attention. Diyos mabalos po sa inyo, Gamos.
That was the message of Senator De Lima. We come now to the most anticipated part of this event. Much is already known about our guest speaker. No surprise though, for his much-deserved popularity has been on a steady rise. But for such an esteemed guest, an introduction is always still in order. So, ladies and gentlemen, to formally introduce our guest speaker for this forum, here is Ateneo Law student Ms. Lai Abanyo.
Words are not enough to describe our guest speaker today. More than his social media handles, Twitter and on Facebook, this man is so much more. And I hope that this primer will do justice in introducing a man with such an illustrious life. For those who know him, former Solicitor General Florin Hilbay has the heart for the poor and the helpless. It was no surprise since Hilbay was born and raised in the slums of Tondo, Manila. Hilbay was born to a poor family. His mother, Lydia, was forced to leave her hometown of Cataran, Cagayan and work as a domestic helper. During her work, she met Pilo's father, named Rodrigo, a messenger in ICTI. Both Pilo's parents never made it to college. Knowing that education is important to lift his family from poverty, since his parents never made it past high school, Pilo strived to finish elementary at the Holy Angel Parochial School and his secondary education at the University of Santo Tomas High School. Pilo had to work as a student assistant in the University of Santo Tomas for him to finish college, where he graduated with a degree in economics. As part of his aspirations to help the poor, Pilo pursued his dream of becoming a lawyer, earning his law degree at the University of the Philippines College of Law. He became a lawyer with flying colors as he placed first in the 99 bar examination with a score of 88.5%. And mind you, it didn't stop there. He further honed his skills by obtaining a Master's of Law degree from Yale Law School in 2005. In 2014, he entered government service as a senior state solicitor general. Despite his young age, Pilo handled several controversial cases. He defended the reproductive health law before the Supreme Court and tackled cases on the Disbursement Acceleration Program, the Priority Development Assistance Fund, and the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement. He was also appointed as the Solicitor General in 2015, and mind you, served as the Philippines agent on the arbitration proceeding on the issues of the West Philippine Sea. When he became a private citizen in 2016, Pilo stood and opposed important issues such as the extension of martial law in Mindanao and the reimposition of death penalty in the country. Currently, he is a member of the faculty of the UP College of Law, where he teaches advanced constitutional litigation, constitutional law, and philosophy of law. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pride, honor, and privilege that we are graced with his presence, the Attorney Florin P. Hilbay. Thank you.
Thank you and good afternoon. Special thanks to the extended introduction. Medyo nahiya naman ako dun. Well, I'd like to thank the Ateneo community for the invitation and the very warm welcome. I started doing these lectures about a year and a half ago, and one of the first places where I started speaking outside of the University of the Philippines, where I teach, was in the Ateneo in Katipunan. Also, coincidentally, the other place where I started speaking was with religious community, and I remember that the first big lecture that I had was at the Arsobispo in Manila with Laico, under the leadership of Bishop Pabilio. And so many things have happened since then, and I'm very happy that my lecture has actually morphed into something very different. I think I have about 5 to 10 versions of this lecture, depending on my estimate of the kind of crowd that I'd like to talk to. What I try to usually do is to adjust the lecture before the kind of crowd. This crowd is a little bit more challenging because it's a rather diverse sort of crowd. So I'll give you the general introduction. What I want to do is to introduce to you the biggest project of the Duterte administration, which is to shift to a different kind of a constitution, and their justification for shifting to a different kind of a constitution, a federal type of a constitution. I don't think it's fruitful to focus only on the question of whether or not you're pro or against federalism. I think it's very important to have a very holistic view of what the project is all about, because this is not simply an academic exercise. You cannot separate the academic aspects of federalism from the political context in which the government would like to pursue this particular project. And so ang gagawin ko po ngayong hapon ito ay tatahiin ko yung konteksto at yung laman ng kanilang federal sistema ng pamahalaan, just to give you a large enough serving of the pie, and to give you also the context, the appropriate political background for understanding where this administration is coming from. But I'd like, as much as possible, to stick to facts, and so you'll have a more grounded understanding of what this is all about. So I'll focus on the context, content, and the process, because those are the three things that I think are very important for people to understand what's going on. Okay. I think it's very important for us to distinguish between federalism and charter change. The way the government envisions it is the revision of the entire Constitution. They're not looking at changing a small part or some small parts of the 1987 Constitution. What they want is to open up entirely the 1987 Constitution. So it's not just an amendment but a revision of the 1987 Constitution. Ano mo yung ibig sabihin nun? That means that they can change anything and everything the moment we enter into a revision process, or we enter that revision process. It's very different from the experience of, say, the United States. The United States Constitution has been there for more than 200 years and amended 27 times. And so they've never opened up entirely the United States Constitution, but they have amended it piece by piece depending on the problem that they identify. And so revision is entirely different because during the drafting process, they may end up changing something that they never thought would be changed. And so a wholesale alteration of the philosophy, the term, the language, and the structure of the Constitution is what the current administration wants, not a piecemeal alteration of the Constitution. And federalism is what? Federalism is the justification or the apparent or supposed reason for wanting to change the Constitution. Next slide. Right, so here, is there something in the Constitution that we ought to amend? I'm a big fan of changing the Constitution via the amendment process. And if there's one thing that I want amended, it's defining and prohibiting political dynasties. Yun lang. If there's one big shortcoming of the 1987 Constitution, it's the failure to incorporate a definition and prohibition of political dynasties. What the 1987 Constitution did was to give to Congress the power to define and prohibit political dynasties. But that's a massive failure given that Congress is composed of political dynasties. There's a high concentration of political dynasties in the Congress. So the only way you can actually amend the Constitution to incorporate a political dynasty clause is by having a president who doesn't come from a political dynasty, right? So we wouldn't suffer from a conflict of interest. And number two, a constitutional convention. There's no way you can have a political dynasty law under a Congress. And even if you get a political dynasty law from Congress, it's not going to be as potent as you would want it to be. But revision process is entirely different matter because the moment, like I said, you open the Constitution to revision, kahit ano pwedeng palitan at pwede tayong maisahan habang pinapalitan yung ating saligang batas. So, what is federalism? I always say you cannot be just pro or anti-federalism. Why? Because federalism doesn't have any meaningful content. It doesn't have any universal definition. There are many different types of federalism. And so if I say, do you want a burger? You're going to tell me, well, what burger do you want? Do you want chicken burger? You want beef burger? Do you want mushroom burger? And what type of bun do you want? And so federalism is about the details. So you cannot say no or yes to federalism without knowing what the details are all about. I think the bigger debate is decentralization, because that is the more interesting debate. Do you want the local governments to be empowered? Yes, because you're in favor of decentralization. That is exactly what federalism is all about as well. Federalism is, at least the way the government understands it today, empowering the regions and taking away some of the powers from the national government. So in theory, no one is against that. That's why you have to look into the details before you say yes or no to the project. Okay. So yeah, if federalism is the solution, what is the problem? The problem that was identified by the 1987 Constitution is the problem of overly concentration of power in the national government. And so the response was to incorporate the idea of local autonomy as a means to decentralize power in the national government. And so that's one way to ease the concentration of power in the national government, by giving that power to the local government. Federalism is the same project, except that it doesn't wish to give power to the local government. It wishes to give powers to the 18 regions that they want to create. So it's the same project, the project of decentralization. So whereas local autonomy is giving power outside of the national government to the local government, the provinces, cities, municipalities, and the barangays, federalism is about giving part of the power of the national government to the regional government. So that by way of a summary, is what the project is all about. Next slide. So what we have right now is a unitary form of government. So you have a dual layer of government, the national government composed of the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of government, and you have the local government, the provinces, cities, municipalities, and the barangay. This is the federal system of government that they want. So instead of a national government and a local government, you have as the division of power, for purposes of dividing power, the national government and the regional government. Next one. It's very important to understand that changing the Constitution is about changing the secular Bible of the Republic. You're trying to change the terms of engagement of the citizens with their own society. So the most important ingredient, in fact, of charter change is the people. So we need to know how the people think, or what the people think about charter change. Why? Because the moment you change the Constitution without participation, it's going to be an affair among the politicians. And that's what you want to avoid. What you want to have is what they call a constitutional moment. Isang environment, an environment where the people themselves are trying to change their relationship with the national government. So we need to look at the facts. What are the facts? Here are the facts. 67% of Filipinos are against charter change. That's a very high number. 2 out of 3 Filipinos are opposed to charter change. And so this is not the constitutional moment that you're looking for. If the government pushes charter change, it will be pushing charter change against the wishes of the beneficiaries. Next slide. This is a listing of the priorities of Filipinos today. If you look at the top 5 concerns of Filipinos, these are the gut issues for Filipinos. And it's understandable because we are a relatively poor or economically challenged country. So the most interesting part is the last part, changing the Constitution. So going back to the first slide, you have 67% of Filipinos who are against charter change. And you also have 3% of Filipinos who are excited about charter change. So these are technically the worst possible conditions for doing charter change. Kaya napaka-importante itanong, bakit gustong palitan ng pamahalaan ng ating saligang batas sa kondisyong ganito? Because what you want is a participatory environment for changing the Constitution. You want a Constitution changed under conditions where the people know what's happening, under conditions where the people are able to say what they want to say and need to say about the process. This for me is the most important slide. 75% of Filipinos consider themselves to have little to no knowledge of the Constitution. So I'll ask the question I always ask. Who among you would consider themselves experts in the 1987 Constitution? Wala matapang. Why? Because I always say, well, if you think you're an expert in the Constitution, then siguro kumuha ka muna dapat ng exam sa akin sa constitutional law, and it's only after you pass the test in constitutional law that we can talk about charter change. But kidding aside, this is a very important and relevant number because you don't want to change the Constitution under conditions of ignorance. Under a situation where an overwhelming majority of Filipinos are not even familiar with the Constitution they want to change. Kung gusto palitan yung saligang batas at hindi man lang naiintindihan ng mga mamamayan kung ano yung saligang batas na papalitan, madaling lokohin yung mamamayan. Ang gusto mong gawin ng ating pamahalaan ay unang-una, ipaalam muna sa mga mamamayan kung ano ba itong saligang batas na pinapalitan. It's only then that you can have an enlightened conversation about what's wrong with the 1987 Constitution such that there is a need to change it. But if I say we need to change the Constitution and an overwhelming majority of Filipinos don't even know what the 1987 Constitution is all about, pwede ko kayong isahan. Pwede ko kayong lokohin. Pwede ko kayong bulahin. The best way to fool the people is by maintaining their ignorance. Diba? Okay. We need to understand what the 1987 Constitution is all about. Because the other important project is for people to become aware of the 1987 Constitution. Ano ba itong Constitution na ito na gusto nilang palitan? And this is the single term by which we can describe the 1987 Constitution. Lahat ng mga saligang batas ay produkto ng environment in which it was created. And the 1987 Constitution was drafted in 1986, right after we ousted President Marcos. So what they sought to incorporate in the new Constitution was the learned experience or the lived experience of the time. And what was that? A sense that we should do our best to prevent a tragic return of dictatorship. You look at the studies done by the Atty School of Government, by the UP School of Economics, they'll tell you something, a pattern in the dictatorship. The very clear result of dictatorship, the destruction of the economy. We were only able to recover in 2004-2005. The ill effects of from the ill effects of the dictatorship. So ano yung nangyayari sa isang panahon ng diktadurya? Tumataas yung level ng pagnanakaw, niyuyurakan yung mga karapatan ng mga mamamayan, sinisira yung mga institusyon ng demokrasya. And so they learned the dangers of concentrating power in one person, such that they sought to try to provide institutions, mechanisms, rules, and norms in the 1987 Constitution, specifically to prevent a return of dictatorship. So if you're going to look at the most important changes from 1973 to 1987, these are basically the changes. All the changes are directed towards preventing a return of a dictatorship. So let's go to the more legal question. Who has the power to propose changes to the 1987 Constitution? Yung ating Pangulo, meron siyang political na karapatan or kapangyarihan para mag-trigger ng pagpapalit ng ating saligang batas or magtulak ng pagpapalit ng ating saligang batas. But ayon sa ating saligang batas, sino ba yung may institutional na karapatan ng palit ng ating saligang batas? Ito lang. The Congress or a constitutional convention. By Congress, we're referring to the current set of members of the House and the Senate. And the constitutional convention is a special purpose vehicle, a separate institution for drafting a new constitution. What does that mean? If you want a special body to do just one thing, to write the Constitution, then you should do it via a constitutional convention. It's very important to note that during his campaign and right after he won the presidency, President Duterte said, gusto mong baguhin yung saligang batas sa paraan ng isang constitutional convention. Why? Because that's a more participatory way of changing the Constitution. If you also want a higher probability of electing delegates who will be independent-minded, drafters of the Constitution, the better way to do it is via a constitutional convention. But if you want the president to control the process and content of the drafting, then it's through the Congress. So pagkatapos ng ilang araw, ang sabi ni Presidente, no, Kongreso na lang ang dapat na magpalit ng ating saligang batas. What does that mean? Not only that he changed his mind, but that he actually wants to control the process and content of changing the Constitution. Note also that the President has created a consultative committee headed by former Chief Justice Renato Puno, a man of integrity, recognized scholar of the Constitution. But we need to ask, What is the constitutional value of the work of the consultative committee? None. None. Because they're not the ones in charge of proposing changes to the Constitution. Ano yung practical na epekto nung sagot na yun? Na walang constitutional na kahalagahan yung kanilang ginawa. It means na yung kanilang final draft, hindi man lamang kailangan basahin ng Kongreso. Na yung kanilang draft, pwedeng baguhin. Pwedeng baguhin ng marami, pwedeng baguhin ng kaunti. So, ang ibig sabihin nun, yung final draft talaga ay manggagaling sa ating Kongreso. So, I always say, charter change is 99% about the credibility of the drafters and 1% about the text. Madaling magsulat ng magandang constitution. Mahirap magsulat ng magandang constitution under conditions that are credible. So yun yung challenge sa kanila. So even if the President doesn't have the constitutional authority to propose changes to the Constitution, he can nonetheless influence the process the way he's done this. So he's created a consultative committee. So even if the work of the consultative committee doesn't have any constitutional value, it has a separate and independent value. And that is what? It gives us the window to his intentions. Kaya kailangan natin tingnan kung ano yung nasulat nila Chief Justice Reynato Puno, dahil doon natin makikita kung ano talaga yung intention nila at this point in time. Next slide. Ito po yung kanilang naisulat. Power to the people, bayan and federalism, power to the regions. It's about 100 pages, and we'll try to go through just the most salient points of the proposal. So balik tayo dun sa issue, no? Saan manggagaling talaga yung panukalang batas? And ano yung timeline? And bakit napaka-importante pag-usapan natin ngayon itong proyekto na ito? Sa kanya, no? Sa kanya manggagaling dahil siya yung current na Speaker of the House of Representatives. So if you want to know what Chacha is all about, well, you need to know her intentions. Yung Chacha will basically be a dance between the President and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Let's talk about timeline. And I think it's very important na maintindihan ninyo kung ano yung timeline at bakit napaka-importante itong timeline na ito. Kung tinitingnan nyo po yung mga balita nung pagbukas na taon na ito, mapapansin nyo na lahat ng mga importanteng ginawa nila ay patungo sa mabilis ng pagpapalit ng ating saligang batas. Because they know that the best time to change the Constitution is during the first half of the term of any sitting president. It doesn't have to be President Duterte, it's a universal rule. The moment the midterm elections happen, ang ating Pangulo, kahit sino man yun, will now go into the lame duck phase. Because everybody will be trying to recalibrate and rebalance power towards the next presidential elections. And so, the best time for any president to do charter change is in the first half of his or her term. So, ano na po yung nangyari doon sa proyekto nila? They tried to do it in May. They wanted charter change the plebiscite to pre-ride on the May barangay elections. Hindi po natuloy dahil pumalag yung Senado. At some point, they wanted to adjust it to October. Hindi rin po natuloy dahil nag-start na magprepara yung mga politiko para dun sa 2019 elections. So, tapos na ba yung Chacha? Hindi. In fact, malamang sa malamang matutuloy pa rin po siya. At paano at kailan po siya matutuloy? If the elections in 2019 happen, and it's likely going to happen at this point, and the government is able to capture both houses of Congress, then the certainty that charter change will happen will be there. Malamang na mangyari siya. The only institution right now that is opposing charter change is the Senate. Which means that if this administration is able to capture the Senate, then charter change will most likely happen. Whether it's by the end of 2019 or early 2020, it's going to happen if the administration is able to control the Senate. And so, hindi mo siya pwedeng kalimutan. Why? Because every administration that wanted to go past the limitations of the 1987 Constitution, or any Constitution for that matter, has tried to change the Constitution. Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo tried to do away with the term limits of the Constitution. Pinigilan siya ng Korte Suprema. Fidel Ramos tried to change the Constitution to, again, to go past the limitations of the 1987 Constitution. Pinigilan siya ng mga mamamayan at ng simbahan. The only person who was successful in changing the Constitution to breach the term limits of that Constitution was Ferdinand Marcos. Next slide. Let's go to the problem of cost, because the consultative committee never wanted to discuss the problem of cost. So a study was done by the University of the Philippines kung magkano yung gagastusin natin sa paglipat sa isang federal na sistema. Bakit tayo gagastos? Because you're creating a new layer of government. So from a national government and local government na binabayaran na natin, you're creating what is known as the middle government. Yan yung 18 rehiyon na kailangan itatag. And you're going to elect new people for that, you're going to hire new people for that, you're going to build new buildings for that, you're going to create a new bureaucracy for that. And according to the study done by UP, it's going to cost us anywhere between 44 and 72 billion per year. So this is not a one-time cost. This is an annual cost we're going to bear. If you don't believe me, you might as well, or if you don't believe in the study done by UP, you might as well look at the next slide. This is the estimate done by the National Economic and Development Authority itself. The NEDA is an institution within the government. And so this has to be credible at the very least, and it's only because ito po yung estimate ng gobyerno ngayon, na mga economic managers ng ating pamahalaan. Kaya naman po si Secretary Pernia and si Secretary Carlos Dominguez, ang sabi nila, ayaw nila dun sa Federalism because it will wreak havoc into our economy. And this is their estimate, 243 billion per year. Just to give you a sense of scale, yung trade law na ating patuloy na binabatikos, patuloy na pinoproblema, yung estimate na na revenues generated niya ay 90 billion lamang. So if you're going to shift to a federal system of government, you have to ask, saan natin kukunin yung 243 billion na iyan? Siyempre, sa paraan ng buwis. Paulit-ulit tayong bubuwisan para mabayaran yung mga politiko at yung mga public officials na kailangan itayo or ilagay sa pwesto for a federal system of government. That's 243 billion you can use for social services, education, housing, hospitalization. Napaka-importante po na bantayan yung kredibilidad ng proseso. Yung pagpapalit ng saligang batas, meron po siyang dalawang aspeto. Yung pagsusulat, yung proposal, at yung ratifikasyon, yung pagpapasa. Ang sabi po nila, huwag kayong matakot kasi sa dulo naman yung mga mamamayan yung boboto kung ayaw nila o gusto nila dun sa isang saligang batas. But nonetheless, you need to understand that the process can be weak in such a way as to make it more difficult for the people to intelligently vote. Bakit? Next slide. Huwag niyong kalimutan na mayroong batas militar sa Mindanao and that martial law will be there up until the end of the year. Already, they're talking about extending martial law in Mindanao in 2019. Why am I talking about martial law? Next slide. Because martial law is the tool by which a government can expedite charter change. At bakit ko po sinasabi yan? Kailangan lang po nating balikan yung ating kasaysayan. Paano ba napalitan yung ating dating konstitusyon noong 1935? And this is the story of Ferdinand Marcos. Ferdinand Marcos became president under the 1935 Constitution. Being the intelligent lawyer that he was, he knew that he was limited by that Constitution to only 2 terms. So anong ginawa niya? He immediately triggered Cha-Cha. Sinabi niya, pangit na yung 1935 Constitution, kailangan ng palitan. But actually, his motive was to breach the term limits of the 1935 Constitution so he can extend his power during his entire lifetime. Nagkaroon ng Constitutional Convention, and when Ferdinand Marcos became impatient with the process, ano yung ginawa niya? Nagdeklara siya ng martial law. Paano? By fake news. A fake assassination attempt on the Secretary of National Defense, Juan Ponce Enrile. And we know it's fake news because JPE himself said, well, talaga naman we staged that assassination attempt precisely for the purpose of triggering the declaration of martial law. And the moment martial law was declared, what did he do? He shut down Congress, he arrested the dissenting members of the Constitutional Convention, and he forced them to come up with a draft that he needed. At ano yung mga sumunod? Next slide. Ito yung sumunod. The plebiscite for the 1973 Constitution was not done through the Commission on Elections. It was done through an executive arm of the government itself. Nagtayo sila ng mga tinatawag na citizens' assemblies. At doon sa mga citizens' assemblies na yun, tinanong yung mga tao, sinong may gusto ng isang sakong bigas, kinuhanan ng picture, at ginamit na ebidensya para sabihin na payag yung mga tao sa 1973 Constitution. Nag-akyatan yung mga abogado sa Korte Suprema, pero ano yung sinabi ng Korte Suprema? Okay lang sa amin yan. And so even if the process was totally illegal, even if the process was totally invalid, because the Constitution, because the Supreme Court at the time, in Javellana versus Executive Secretary said, we're not going to touch the validity of that process, we're not going to look into the illegality of that process, natsunod pa rin yung gusto ni Presidente Marcos, which is what? Constitutional authoritarianism. That is the term that he used to describe his own regime. So, pwede pong mangyari din yan. Kaya kailangan natin tandaan na yung batas militar ay isang Damocles sword hanging over our heads. Na kapag nagdeklara o nagkaroon ng isang batas militar sa ating bayan, pwedeng ratyadahin yung charter change. And so, even if the timeline has been moved, even if the timeline has been delayed, you always have to recognize the possibility that if martial law is declared today or next month, then the government can expedite the changing of the replacement of the 1987 Constitution. Ito yung paulit-ulit nilang sinasabi. The President wants to declare a revolutionary government. The President wants to declare martial law. There's persistent rumors of destabilization. These are actually moves by which they would like to trigger the changing of the Constitution. Because the biggest art dun sa storya ng ating Republika ngayon ay ito talaga. Bakit? Dahil this is the only way by which this administration can go beyond the limitations imposed by the 1987 Constitution. And the more potential allegations of violations of human rights, the more potential allegations of corruption that are hurled against any administration, the higher the incentive to change the Constitution. Dahil ayaw mo na palitan yung administrasyon at habulin ka ng susunod na administrasyon. So every time you hear these types of language, it's actually about changing the Constitution. It's going beyond the terms imposed by the 1987 Constitution. So if you listen to the presentation of Secretary or General Galvez yesterday, it's basically the military telling us, signaling to us that there are moves within the Duterte administration to declare a nationwide martial law again. There's a lot of nuance about what they're saying, but what I can tell you right now is that I think the military is trying to signal to the people that if you're going to oppose a martial law, you might as well speak as loudly as you can. Because the military would like to promote or defend the Constitution the best way that it can. So let's now look at the content of the draft, at the content of the federal Constitution that they have written. Next slide. Okay. This is their definition of national territory. Might be a bit lengthy for you to understand, but what I'll tell you is what you cannot find in their draft national territory. What you will not find there is the West Philippine Sea. So, for some reason, they have conveniently forgotten to mention the West Philippine Sea. It's interesting because they were able to mention the Philippine Rise, or what used to be Benham Rise, an area on the eastern side of the Philippine seaboard that is still uncontested. But yung lugar kung saan kailangan nating itaya yung ating, kung ano man yung ating pinaglalaban, yung dapat nating ipaglaban, the West Philippine Sea, parang hindi nila nailagay. And I don't think that is an innocuous omission. So what does that mean? The national territory language of the proposed Constitution is very soft in terms of protecting the West Philippine Sea. And if you ask me what's the most important thing that we need to protect when it comes to protecting our national territory or our entitlements, it's really just the West Philippine Sea. Dahil nandun nakataya yung ating soberanya ngayon. Next slide. Atty. Sales already mentioned this. This is the face of federalism. 36 senators, so from 24 they want to increase the number of senators to 36. Next slide. So from about almost 300 members of the House of Representatives, they want to increase the membership of the Senate, the House to at least 400. So ang ibig sabihin lang na ay simple, mas maraming politiko. Next slide. So, sa tingin ko, ito yung talagang nakakagulat at nakakatakot doon sa kanila isinulat. No? Ano yung unli na gusto natin? Gusto natin yung unli loan, diba? Pero ayaw natin yung unli martial law. Why do I say unli martial law? For the law students and the lawyers here, you will notice a very interesting phrase that they inserted. Lawless violence. Lawless violence as a ground for declaring martial law in any part or in the entirety of the country. What does that mean? They are lowering the standard for declaring martial law. And what's lawless violence? It could be anything. Killings of the streets, extrajudicial killings, killings of politicians, killings of priests, a threat of killing. Right? That's lawless violence. And so if you insert in the command-in-chief powers of the president, the power to declare martial law because of lawless violence, what you're giving him is a license to declare martial law anytime. And that is exactly opposite the tone, spirit, and content of the 1987 Constitution. The 1987 Constitution is allergic to martial law. In fact, when you were law students, ang sinasabi sa amin, taka lang yung presidente na magdedeklara ng batas militar. Why? Because there's so many limitations that were placed by the 1987 Constitution on the power of the president that it wouldn't make any sense for him to declare martial law. What will he do? He'll just call out the armed forces of the Philippines. Right? And yet this draft basically gives license to the president, to any sitting president, to declare martial law anytime. And so it flips the basic principle of our government, which is civilian supremacy. If the president, anytime he wants, can declare nationwide martial law, that means that the president can subvert civilian supremacy anytime he wants and impose military rule. Even if only for that, I think that's a reason to oppose or to be really worried about this particular draft. Dahil ilagay nila doon yung kapangyarihan ng presidente na sirain yung demokrasya. Because that is the meaning of martial law. Martial law is essentially the union of all powers of the state in one person because of an emergency. Next slide. They always talk about Imperial Manila as if parang napakasama ng mga tao sa Maynila. No? Actually, if you look at the current practice of this administration, all powers are concentrated in the president. He's the most imperious of all the presidents we've had. And not because of what he's doing, but because of his control over the budget. Even if only for that, parang magkaiba yung sinasabi dun sa ginagawa. But if you look at the language of the draft, nandiyan pa rin naman yung control nila dun sa budget. What is Imperial Manila? When people say Imperial yung Manila, what does that mean? Ito lang. That the budget is controlled by Manila. Kaya lahat ng mga politiko lumulukod dun sa kung sino man yung nakaupo sa Malacanang. Pagkatapos ng eleksyon, naglilipatan sa partido ng nanalong presidente simply because of this. The control of the president to the Department of Budget and Management over the budget. Dahil kung ako, gagamitin ko yung kapangyarihan na to, ikaw ay isang congressman, tatanggalin ko lang yung pera na pwedeng ibigay sa'yo, mamamatay ka. So if you're a legitimate congressperson who'd like to use public funds to support yung mga mamamayan mo, pag wala kang pera, wala kang maibibigay sa iyong mga mamamayan. If you're a corrupt member of Congress, pag tinanggal ko yung pera, wala kang makukurako. Ganun lang kasimple. So this is what makes Manila imperial. Pero hindi naman nila tinanggal. It's still there. So even under their draft federal constitution, Manila is still in fact imperial. This is weird. No? I think Atty. Salas already mentioned it. No? 22, effectively 22 Supreme Courts. No? 4 Supreme Courts with potentially conflicting jurisdictions at the national government and 18 Supreme Courts at the regional government. So babahan ng puwara ito pag nagkataon. Yung ating pong problema sa ating judikatura ay problema ng kultura. Hindi problema ng dami ng mga korte. I'll give an example. The United States, a very big country, one Supreme Court. That one Supreme Court decides 75 cases per year. 75 cases per year. We have one Supreme Court in the Philippines. That Supreme Court decides 200 cases per month. So yun yung problema natin. Hindi yung kakulangan sa mga korte. In fact, hindi nga tayo makapagpuno ng mga West doon sa mga trial courts. Dadagdagan pa nila ng mga korte. It will only, especially given our culture, it will only delay the administration of justice. Also make justice even more expensive. That's right. So let's now go to the administrative aspect of the federal project or federalism project. This is what they want. 16 federated regions plus 2 special regions. So 18 regions. Kaya ano yung mukha ng federalismo na kanilang isinusulong? 18 rehiyon. 18 rehiyon. Nabibigyan ng kapangyarihan, tatanggalin yung kapangyarihan na yun sa national government at sa mga local government. That's exactly what federalism is all about if you look at their project. Next slide. These are the powers of the federal regions or the states that they're going to create. I'll just summarize to you these powers. Tax, 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 fees, taxes. Yung mga mamamayan allergic sa mga ganyang kapangyarihan. Dahil alam natin na tayo yung sasalo ng mga buwis na ipapataw para mabuhay yung mga rehiyon na yan. The idea is, at least this is what they're saying, you need to create these 18 federal regions to become the economic hubs. And they need to become self-sustaining. The only way they can become self-sustaining is by imposing taxes. Kaya yan po yung kanilang federal sistema ng pamahalaan. Assuming that the federated regions or these regions will actually find the courage to tax their citizens. Because taxing is always, well, a very unpopular exercise of public power. Diba? Sa mga local governments, ayaw nga nila mag-impose ng taxes kasi matatalo yung mga politiko na magpapataw ng mga police. Whether the regions will have the courage to do that is an entirely separate matter. So this is just a theory. Next slide. This is the fiscal aspect of federalism. Yung 50% sharing ng income taxes, excise taxes, and other taxes collected by the national government. So yun yung hatian nila. Nagtatayo sila ng equalization fund para dun sa mga rehiyon na naiiwan sa laylayan. And then, Section 6, yan po yung control ng Kongreso dun sa general appropriations, kung pwede silang magbigay ng pera dun sa mga rehiyon na itatayo. And then ito, sa tingin ko, this will be taken from mining activities for the most part. No? Exploration, development, and utilization of natural resources. This is a very important topic, no? Especially for those who care about the environment and the relationship of people with the environment and the poverty created by economic activities because of the use of natural resources. The 1987 Constitution is nationalistic in the sense that it imposes nationalistic requirements for the entry of corporations. And performing economic activities will have to comply with the 60-40 requirement of the Constitution. What did they do? Ang proposal nila is in paragraph B, which gives the Congress the power to lift those nationalistic requirements. This has always been the economic incentive for doing charter change, para makapasok yung mga transnational corporations and hindi na sila kailangan mag-comply dun sa 60-40 requirement. Next slide. The first part is very interesting for me because I'm worried about the problem of joint development with China. If you look at the language of Section 4, medyo malambot po yan kumpara dun sa lengguwahe ng ating saligang batas ngayon. The language of the current Constitution is to the effect that the exploration, development, and utilization of natural resources shall be under the full control and supervision of the state. What does that mean? Because we won in the decision in Philippines versus China, joint development with China is unconstitutional. This language allows joint development with China dahil nawala na yung full supervision and control of the state. Ito na lang, shared power between the federal government and the regions. So, if the national government enters into joint development with China, ang mangyayari lang, maghahati yung national government with the regions dun sa 50% na makukuha from an arrangement with China. So I think that's one of the biggest economic incentives or the economic motive for doing Chacha, para wala ng constitutional barrier to having a joint development with China. If you look also at paragraph B, ganun din po yung nilagay nila, giving Congress the power to change the voting capital requirement. So you're basically giving Congress the license to allow the full entry of transnational corporations into the Philippines. Wala na yung limitations. You give Congress that power, they will give it entirely to the transnational corporations. If you look at the chapters of the draft federal constitution that they've written, you will find no protection for the local government duties. So kapag po nag-iikot kami doon sa mga local governments, ito yung sinasabi namin. Kung sa tingin nyo, matutuwa kayo sa isang federal na sistema ng pamahalaan, hanapin nyo yung LGU doon sa draft constitution nila. Wala. The 1987 Constitution is big on the principle of local autonomy. But under a federal concept of government, kailangan tanggalin yung local autonomy dahil kailangan mong palakasin yung mga rehiyon. The power can only be taken from the local governments and the national government. Kaya yung mga local governments, luluhod sila dun sa national government and dun sa regional government. So magiging dalawa yung boss nila. And this is a particular problem for me because the ones that are closer to the people are the local governments, the provinces, cities, municipalities, and barangays. Kung walang masyadong protection sa kanila, ang ibig sabihin, federalism will simply be about hatian ng mga politiko dun sa resources ng ating gobyerno. Ang sabi nila, masyado kayong negatibo, banat kayo ng banat, wala naman kayong ibang alternatibo. So, kailangan natin tignan, no? Meron po bang mga alternatibo na hindi natin pinapalitan yung ating saligang batas? Are there cheaper, less dangerous, or non-dangerous ways of doing that project, which is decentralizing power from the national government? Next slide. Ito. The President has full control over the budget. Kung gusto niya buhusan ng pera yung hotbed ng yung hotbed o kung anong hotbed man yan, kung gusto niya tulungan yung Naga, yung Cebu, yung Iloilo, yung Mindanao, ano yung pwedeng gawin ng Presidente? Ito, lagyan niya ng pera sa budget. There's no barrier. There's no constitutional barrier to the President supporting any region that he wants to support. Kung gusto niyang buhusan ng 10 bilyon, 100 bilyon, kung anumang probinsya dun sa Mindanao, lagay niya dun sa budget niya. And if he really wants to federalize the budget, if he wants to empower the local governments, bawasan niya yung discretion ng Department of Budget and Management sa pag-release ng mga photo. Yun na. Tapos na yung usapan. If the issue is simply about empowering communities that are closer to the people, eto lang yung kailangan niyang gawin. Tapos ang usapan. Wala na iba. In fact, there is a recent decision of the Supreme Court, the decision in Mandanas. And ano yung ibig sabihin ng decision dun sa Mandanas case? The national government owes the local governments 1.5 trillion pesos. What does that mean? If the problem is about providing resources to the local governments, then all that the national government has to do is to follow that decision. Pero ano yung ginawa ng national government? Nag-file ng motion for reconsideration dun sa kaso na yun. So magkaiba yung sinasabi dun sa ginagawa. So sinasabi na kailangan palakasin yung mga komunidad na malapit sa mga mamayan. Pero gustong ipasok lahat ng pera dun sa national government pa rin. So that impacts on the credibility of their project. They can also amend the local government code. What does that mean? Lahat ng mga nilagay nila dun sa proposed draft nila, pwede naman nilang ilagay lang dito at ibaon dun sa local government code. Ang ibig sabihin po niyan, merong mas madali at mas mura na paraan para gawin yung balak. Pero ang gusto, yung mahal at yung nakakatakot. Buksan yung ating saligang batas. Which is why we always need to look at the question of motive. Kung merong mura at madaling paraan para gawin yung sinasabi na gustong gawin, at gustong pumunta doon sa nakakatakot at mahal na solusyon, kailangan pumasok kilay ng mga mamamayan. Next slide. If you don't have time to read the draft federal constitution, I will advise you to read only the transitory provisions. Dahil yun po yung sa tingin ko na pinaka-importante doon sa proseso. Ano yung gusto nilang mangyari? Bumoto yung mga mamamayan sa isang federal na sistema ng pamahalaan, sa isang bagong konstitusyon, at kapag meron ng bagong konstitusyon, magkakaroon ng period of transition. Kaya yung tanong para sa mga mamamayan, lalo sa mga abogado, ano yung mangyayari during this transition process? And here is what's going to happen during the transition. Number one, you'll have a transition commission headed by the President. Because the President will head the Transition Commission, that means that the Transition Commission is the President himself. Siya yung may control dun sa paglipat from a unitary form of government to a federal system of government. Next slide. Ang pinaka-importante kailangan tignan ay yung nasa ilalim. Ano yung kapangyarihan ng Transition Commission? The power to formulate and adopt a transition plan. Ang ibig sabihin po niya, gusto nila na magpasa muna tayo at mag-ratifika ng isang bagong saligang batas bago natin makuita yung transition plan. Parang ang pinapabili ng bahay, pinagbabayad doon sa bahay ng 243 billion, nang hindi yung malang nakikita yung blueprint ng bahay na gagawin. Parang wala namang matinong Pilipino na papayag yan doon sa ganong sistema. Ang gusto mo, para makapag oo o hindi ka ng matino, ay makita yung kabuuan ng plano bago ka pumayag o hindi pumayag. And so, a draft federal constitution without a transition plan is actually a very dangerous draft constitution. Dahil papakitaan ka ng framework, pero walang detalye. The detail, well, sabi nga po nila, yung demonyo nasa detalye. Diba? Kung hindi mo makikita yung detalye, hindi mo makikita yung demonyo. Kung nagtatago nga siya o nandiyan lang sa gilid. Next slide. This for me is the most dangerous part in the transitory provision. I'll just read to you the powers of the Transition Commission transitioning to a federal system of government. The power to promulgate rules, regulations, orders, decrees, proclamations, and other issuances. The power to organize, reorganize, fully establish the federal government and the governments of the federated regions. The power to exercise all powers necessary and proper. What does that mean? That's total dictatorship. That's union of all the powers of government in one transition commission. Lahat. Executive, legislative, and judicial. So, ang sinasabi po sa atin, kailangan yung pumayag sa isang federal na sistema ng gobyerno at kapag kayo ay bumoto sa isang federal na constitution, bibigyan nyo kami ng kapangyarihan ng isang revolutionary government. Pero dahil nakapaloob siya sa isang federal constitution, walang magagawa yung militar dahil it's a legalized form of a revolutionary government. Just for clarity, ano yung pwede lang gawin? Pwede ba nilang baguhin yung mga batas dati? Yes. Pwede ba nilang tanggalin yung mga mayor, yung mga governor na ayaw nila? Yes. Pwede ba nilang palitan yung mga maestrado ng Korte Suprema, yung chair ng Commission on Human Rights? Yes. Pwede ba sila magpa-aresto ng tao kahit walang warrant of arrest? Yes. Pwede ba lang tanggalin sa mapa ng Pilipinas yung Naga, yung Iloilo, yung Cebu? Yes, because they have the power to organize and reorganize the federal government. And so, ano yung balak nila? So, yung Cha-Cha apparently is simply a constitutionalized revolutionary form of government. So, yan po yung balak nila. At hindi ko po sinulat yan, yan po yung sinulat nila. So, ang tawag po dyan, resibo. Diba? Kaya ako nga, natuwa ko na meron na silang draft kasi at least we are not speculating about motives. We can now talk objectively about what they want. So if they talk about federalism, we can talk about, well, tingnan natin yung kabuuan ng konstitusyon na sinulat niya. Tingnan natin yung konteksto, yung laman, pati yung proseso. Ito yung pinaka-importante dun sa proseso gusto nilang gawin. Na pumunta tayo sa isang revolutionary government bago kayo makarating dun sa gusto nyong puntahan, which is a federal system of government. Next slide. So ito, the moment you do it, hindi ka na makakabalik. And this is asked every now and then. Kapag po ba ayaw natin yung saligang batas na pinayagan natin, pwede pa po ba tayong bumalik doon sa 1987 Constitution? wala na. Kailangan nyo na mag-move on the moment na pinasa yung bagong saligang batas. Hindi ka na makakabalik. There's no turning back. Because a president who's exercised all the powers of government under the Transition Commission will have what? All the infinity stones. Diba? Kanya na lahat. Hindi ka na makakabalik. Pwede ka bang pumunta sa Korte Suprema, sabihin mo na mali yung paggamit ng kapangyarihan ng Transition Commission? Pwede naman, pero ano yung chance na papayag sa iyo yung Korte Suprema? Ano yung chance na hindi papayag yung Korte Suprema sa kagustuhan ni Thanos? Diba? Kung kanya na lahat ng infinity stones. At kahit na tutulan siya ng Korte Suprema, what can he do? Well, he can fire the members of the Supreme Court. He can reorganize the Supreme Court in the guise of reorganizing the federal system of government or exercising all powers necessary and proper. Sa mga abogado, napakasimple nung ibig sabihin nun. Lahat, all in. Walang matitira na kapangyarihan. Lahat mapupunta dun sa presidente. So that, I think, is the entire context of their biggest project. And it still remains to be the most important project of the Duterte administration. Because if they want to extend their power, this is the only way by which they can do it. Well, the sad reality is, in all probability, pwede pa rin mangyari talaga, especially if they win all the slots in the 2019 elections. So thank you and good afternoon.
Well, as Atty. Hilbay said, we cannot just say no or yes to federalism. We must know and understand its details and understand its ramifications. Well, friends, the details have just been given. It's just been presented. And it has been shown to us what its possible ramifications are. So I guess it's up to us to find stable ground and stand our ground. And probably become the Avengers, the archenemy of Thanos. After the speech of, after this talk of Atty. Hilbay, I'm sure everybody wants a dialogue with him. A number of our guests, participants, lawyers, law students, those from the academe, the private sector, and some from the government. I heard that there are several from here. And to lead us into this dialogue, here's our panel of reactors. We have our professor in constitutional law, so I guess he would have bearing on this matter. Attorney Pio Martin Gerardo Porra, Attorney Ricky Tomotogo, also professor at the College of Law, Mr. Jose Enrique Narvaez, a senior high school student of the Ateneo, and of course, one of our brothers in law, Francis Lim, a law student of the Ateneo College of Law.
Good afternoon, Attorney Florin. My concern is whether the real important thing is the structure or the change of structure, or is it really the change of actors in the structure? I want to liken it to a Formula One race. The best cars in the world are pitted, but all those sponsors would really bet because of their drivers and the systematic crew behind the driver. So under this situation, I like to believe that there must be an advocacy more on the actors rather than a change of the structure. Is this something that you also agree about?
Hello? Okay, I think we can, academically, we can separate the proposal from the credibility of the proponents. If you ask me about the proposal only, I'd say, regardless of who the proponent is, I will not agree to this kind of a draft because it's just too dangerous given the content that I've shown you. And so it doesn't have to be President Duterte. Even if it were a president that I consider credible and honest, I would still disagree with the draft. But at the same time, I think given that we live in the real world, we cannot really separate the proposal from our assessment of the credibility of the proponents. And so I already disagree with the draft as written. And if you add to that my concerns about the characters who are involved in this effort of changing the Constitution, I'd say I'd be even more worried about this particular project because I have reservations about the credibility of this administration.
Just a follow-up. Assuming that we have this kind of proposal for federalism, they have been citing sort of promises like we could solve the problem of the ruling of the elite or the oligarch. We could solve the problem of poverty in the lower level. We could solve probably the migration of Filipinos abroad because we would have greater factors here. I'd like to believe that actually the probabilities, these proposals are the solutions they are presenting might just be giving effect to more problems on poverty, more problems on migration, more problems even probably on the ruling of the elite. If we would have these regional states, are we not creating an oligarchic democracy here?
I agree. In fact, those people who say that federalism will solve the problem of migration, the problem with the oligarchs, are basically committing estafa. I mean, if you want to solve the problem of political dynasties, for example, the best way to do it is by having a separate amendment to the Constitution. In fact, my proposal is do that as a precondition to thinking about federalism. Because if you do federalism without restructuring the political dynasty system here, then you're simply entrenching them by giving them another platform. It's called the regional governments. So you have to do that separately and independently. In fairness to the group of CJ Puno, they included in their draft a provision defining political and prohibiting political dynasties. But like I said, their proposal is simply recommendatory because the President has chosen Congress as the institution that will draft the new Constitution. The question is, what are the chances that they will accept a definition of an anti-political dynasty clause? No chance. And what is the evidence of that? They have never, in fact, passed an anti-political dynasty law.
The mere fact that after 30 years they still haven't passed an anti-political dynasty statute means that even if you do that through charter change, they still will reject it. And that's quite understandable because they will simply be acting rationally, promoting their self-interest. If majority of the members of Congress are, as per the study done by the Ateneo School of Government, dynastic in nature, then there's no incentive for them to promote an anti-political dynasty provision in the Constitution.
Thank you very much.